We're in the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Christina Giordano, she, her, and hers, and I am the Senior Partnerships Manager here at AllVoices. Today, I am very excited to welcome our next guest on the interview series, Jaclyn Mack. She is the Vice President of People at Chainalysis. Jaclyn, thank you so much for being here. If you want to share a little bit about yourself, including your pronouns, and when you were younger, do you remember how exactly you answered the question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Hi, so nice to be on the podcast and be talking to you today. My pronouns are she, her, hers as well. And growing up, I was convinced I was going to be either a lawyer or a singer. Those were my two goals. And I don't know what changed through the process, but ended up on the people side.
I love that. I always think it's interesting to think about where we thought we would be like 10, 20 years down the line. Fast forward to today, you're the Vice President of People. Amongst the many that I'm sure you are solving and working on, what's the next problem or situation you're trying to tackle?
So the biggest top of mind item for me right now is scale. We are going through massive scale within the organization, and with that, there's a lot of initiatives and guidelines that we have to either build that we've never had before to make sure that we have the rigor in place that we need to support the growing team and be able to still have a transparent, open culture. But then also make sure that teams are staffed, managers understand what's needed, they have the support they need to be the best managers they can, and just a lot more that falls under that.
Yeah, scaling, really testing things, resourcing folks to set them up for success as well, especially managers. When you think about company culture, especially as you continue to grow, what are qualitative and quantitative ways you think about measuring this moving piece?
So on the quantitative side, I do like to keep track of engagement scores, turnover, where the attrition is happening, why. If it's happening at a certain tenure of people, I also like to track tenure just to see the evolving company. And then I think truthfully, on the qualitative side, it's all about listening to people. It's, hearing what the questions that are coming up in meetings. And truthfully, it doesn't even have to be a people meeting. It could just be, hey, I'm participating in another meeting. I'm hearing this question or this theme. And then I know my HR BPs are also hearing it. It's like, okay, let's zoom out. What is the bigger picture? What is what are they trying to understand, or what are we not being clear about that we can dig in from there? So I love listening in meetings and just hearing water cooler conversations or side conversations at the beginning of a call, because you learn so much more of what's going on.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. Not listening kind of within that silo or a specific meeting for feedback. You're getting kind of feedback all of the time as well. And it doesn't just happen. You have to have the intentionality behind it too. Some folks say they are just growing like gangbusters. They are just running with it and they're gonna kind of fix things later. How can you give an example of how you are really intentionally growing and maintaining that culture at Chainalysis?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. One of the key areas that we're hyper focused on during this scaling process is internal communications.
Yeah.
So it's making sure that we have a really strong strategy in place and that we are emphasizing again the key messages that we want to share out with people. And then we have regular touch points with people. So, it feels, when a company grows, and especially very quickly, it can sometimes feel like we're siloed, especially in this hybrid world, or we're very far away from, the founders or the leaders. So we want to make sure that we have that regular cadence of talking to people and giving them information and being transparent about the changes that are going on. I think the other part is making sure that, from my side, it's making sure I'm partnering really, really closely with TA and FP&A to think intentionally about the growth that we are going through. And our HR VPs partnering with those functions and their leaders as well, so that we are building teams correctly, or we're able to identify gaps, before they become something that oh no, we now have to retroactively react to instead of proactively plan for.
Absolutely. I think that effective communication is really critical, especially as things are changing and moving all the time. And that doesn't mean having all the answers. It just means being transparent, acknowledging where we are, what questions we're asking as well. I know you've been at Chainalysis for over 4 years, which is great. And I wanted to know, what is the biggest change you've seen in the organization? I'm sure you've seen a lot of change in terms of people, talent, and company culture at the org.
Yeah, so when I started, we were 60 people. We're now just around the 700 person mark.
Wow.
It's a big change. And I always love saying, if you're coming to Chainalysis, what you come in to do might change within the first 6 months that you're here, and every 6 months after. But I think the biggest change that I've like experienced during my time at Chainalysis that I've loved a lot is, in the beginning, everyone had to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And they were expected to be those generalists and have a hand in all of these various projects. As we've gone and we've grown as a company, we've matured as an organization, we've been able to bring in more people with experience and experts in what they do. And the reason why I love that change so much is because what I've noticed is, for the people who like were the generalists, all of a sudden they're working with experts and they're growing exponentially. So to watch people internally go from, the generalist that I knew 4 years ago or 3 years ago to like these very advanced experts in a field that you might not even think was something that was on their radar, it's my favorite part of the job. Every time I get to hear some news about someone getting promoted or working on a project and really doing so well.
Yeah, I mean, the number of folks have changed, the subject matter experts you're bringing in, the people. I think that's incredible, and a really different experience from when you first started at the organization as well. You mentioned things are changing all the time. I think there's been acceleration of change over the past few years because nobody had a crystal ball and knew what was happening. So being adaptable was super important. And people are auditing the employee experience. We've seen a lot of improvement to processes as well. Can you tell me about how you've kind of redesigned the system to be more equitable, whether it's a process, policy, or initiative?
So one of the things that we did going into this year was to think through, how can we support people more fully. And originally we had a parental leave policy that had secondary and primary caregivers in place. It worked for us in the very early days, but one of the things we realized is we wanted to make them more equitable. We got feedback from employees. We were hearing more about, how that having a split policy leave really isn't fair and equitable. So the beginning of this year, we changed our parental leave policy, and now we give 6 months to everyone, because we also know how important it is to be able to bond with your child within their first 6 months. So everyone gets the same leave policy across the US.
That is really critical as well, and really impacts the full life of the employee, of their team members as well. And we know that's not just a nice to have, but it's a need to have in terms of what people are looking for, what they're expecting from employers, really engaging in the conversation. One study found that 47% of employees reported that their stress overall, whether it's job related, life related, was higher than anything they've experienced before, but only 37% agreed that their organization really understood what they needed in their personal lives and with their families as well. Can you tell me a little bit more about how Chainalysis really supports those full lives of the employees too?
Yeah, so along with the parental leave policy, we just did a major overhaul in our benefits and what we offered to people. So not only did we try to give stronger medical, dental, vision benefits, which it's pretty standard in most companies, but then we try to make sure that we had other benefits like Carrot, Spring Health, Rocket Lawyer, so that we were supporting people as a whole. We recognize that people have different fertility needs, they have different mental health needs, they have different legal needs. And let's be honest, most of us don't know who to always go to first. So to have support, to have a resource internally that they can go to get advice or to be pointed in a better direction, we thought it was so important for people. And especially over the past 2 years, when we saw the shift of work-life balance blending, we recognized we also had to enhance our benefits to take care of people as a whole.
Absolutely. I think that kind of goes to your earlier point as well, in kind of bringing in subject matter experts, but thinking about partners and benefits, kind of bringing those organizations in as well, providing folks with resources when they need them too. So being really proactive. We know that being seen, heard, and understood is better for everyone, the organization and the individuals, the teams. We are in June 2022, can't believe it. And I definitely want to ask how Chainalysis is honoring and celebrating Pride this year, recognizing that I'm sure this is something that you are doing along with other organizations in supporting LGBTQIA plus employees year round.
Yeah. So what we, as a company, what we put in place last year was something called Days of Reflection. So it's actually 4 days that now are company holidays that are on days to represent or highlight a an underrepresented group. So those days include Juneteenth. I know that that's now a federal holiday, which is so exciting, but it wasn't at the time. Harvey Milk Day, International Women's Day, and UN Migrants Day. And really, it's just we do programming on those days. We have an amazing DEI committee, and I know that this month is Pride, and we're going to do a little bit celebration with our employees. But we think it's important to not only focus on our on the LGBTQIA plus community, but other underrepresented groups as a whole. So we try to take a more holistic approach on those days.
Yes, I love the gift of time as well, and taking the time to recognize, honor, and have that intentional programming is super important as well. So let's talk about, not necessarily at Chainalysis, of course, and definitely don't have to name names, but what is continuously not working? Are there any common mistakes you see companies making in their people, culture, talent strategy that you just wanted to highlight?
The biggest mistake that I see happen in organizations is there's a combination of two. One is when companies not bringing in people leaders early enough. They wait until there's an issue or there's something problematic going on within the organization, or they're getting questions they can't answer. So to bring in the people function at an earlier stage, not only are you setting up the people function to grow with the rest of the organization, but that you're then setting up for employees to have the support they need at that earlier junction. And I think the other part, and I say this about Chainalysis all the time, the reason why I joined Chainalysis was because someone told me the founders really care about the people and they were looking for a head of people. And I'm sure a lot of people have experienced leaders who say that. They say it's absolutely important, but then when they work in the company or they get to know whatever the case may be, it's not there. Like it's just a to-do on a list. Michael and Jonathan from the very beginning have cared about the people side. They want to make sure that they're supporting employees. They want to make sure that people are set up successfully and they are able to get what they need and still professionally grow and develop and learn in the organization. So I think those are the two biggest areas I would focus on.
Absolutely. I think that is really critical to understand as well. I was talking to someone about this the other day too, in terms of you need X number of employees to hire your first people person. And I think that's definitely a myth as well. If you have people working at your company, then you need someone. This is a full-time job, if not many people, as well as you continue to grow. And the people are the ones that are working on the product, service, working with customers, clients, and really internally as well. We've seen a lot of innovation in employee experience, the elevation of the employee voice, 4-day work week. We talked about benefits, which is incredible. Is there any specific innovation in the talent and company culture space that you are really excited by, and why?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that it's the change of being people first. It is people, like all companies are moving towards being people first now more than ever. So it's making sure that people are being taken care of as a whole person. We spend the majority of our time at work, right? So to think that we can only take care of people, during working hours, well, that's how much percentage of their life, the majority. So I love the new push to take care of people as a whole and to make sure that we are thinking about them outside of just their work world.
Yeah, absolutely. The silos, the breaking of the third wall, if you will, too,
Yeah.
is out the window because we are all, we have experienced something together. And also, you and I are right now, I'm assuming, are in our homes as well. So entering it together. So I think that is a big shift we're seeing, and really leaning into the conversation and destigmatizing maybe what was taboo to talk about at work, but since right in front of us as well, really engaging in the conversation, actively listening. Jaclyn, is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to share with folks who are listening, or maybe underscoring a couple key takeaways that you hope people really bring with them?
I mean, I think one of the things I would just emphasize again is that if you are working in an organization that's going through lots of change quickly, just for people to understand change can be hard. But if you embrace that change into what you were saying earlier, if you are flexible and you're able to, be the tree that sways in the wind with the change, you're going to get so much more out of it. And you might end up in a place that you never thought you would end up. I never thought I would work in recruiting, honestly. I started my career working in financial advising, never thought it, and took on the opportunity, and then I'm so lucky. I feel so lucky to be working in this space. So just recognize change is normal, change is hard, but if you are flexible, then who knows, your growth and your future is just absolutely endless.
Absolutely. Have that growth mindset, be open to opportunities, be open to learning. And I think that is a good call to action to top off our conversation. Jaclyn, thank you so much for being on Reimagining Company Culture this afternoon.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Of course, and as a reminder for folks who are listening, at AllVoices, we really believe in both employees and employers being seen, heard, and understood. And know it's a requirement for the business to really succeed overall. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.